Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in once again to Queen Ahmadiyyah TV presents More Than Meets the Third Eye. Okay, so this is the second dose of your spiritual vitamins for the day. And we're going to be talking about astrology. I can't remember who asked me to talk about this last week. But so anyway, I'm going to go ahead and talk about this. And this is just part one, okay, of how astrology is very important as it pertains to our spirituality. So let's get ready to get into it. Everyone, please be sure to go ahead and like and share the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Be sure to click the notification bell and click the word all so that you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live on this channel. All right. And after we finish this, those of you, hopefully you got the notifications that I sent to you myself, because we're going to be doing the daily vitamins early this evening. I'm going to be going on at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as opposed to 6 o'clock. Okay. So let's get ready to get into it. And thank you all for tuning into the chat. Okay, I'm going to share my screen so we can get this PowerPoint rolling. All right. Okay, so let's get into it. Spirituality and astrology. Now, in astrology, one can see how inclined an individual is going to be towards worldliness or spiritual practices to attain moksha. Now, the strength and placement of the planets can help determine which kind of spiritual practices would better suit each individual. This is how we study spirituality through astrology. Now, for those of you who don't know, spirituality and astrology go hand in hand. Okay, it is very beneficial to study astrology to be more in tune with the universe, nature, and how the underworkings or the inner workings of the universe correspond to us personally, each individual. Also, it talks about, in the Bible, it talks about astrology. It's mentioned several times in the Bible. A lot of Christians think that, oh, it's occult practices, it's satanic, you're not supposed to be dabbling in astrology and numerology and things like this. But that's absolutely crazy, because these same things are in the Bible, and it doesn't say anything about not partaking in them in the Bible. Also, let's not forget that our ancient ancestors, the Cometians, i.e. the Egyptians, they studied these things themselves, okay? What does spiritual mean in astrology? Now, spirituality is related to the Atma, which is the soul, and astrology is related to planets. Astrology deals with observing the movements of the planets and making calculations related to the events that are yet to happen. The science of Vastu is related to direction, to space, while astrology is related to time. Now, which planets are responsible for spirituality? Well, spiritual growth is indicated by the planets. They're indicated by the planet of Jupiter, also the moon and the sun, Uranus and Neptune. Among all these planets, Jupiter is very important, and it dominates the entire horoscope of the spiritual person. That's for spiritual people who are in tune with the universe and things like that. Now, in astrology, is astrology a spiritual practice? Astrology is an ancient practice, what I just said, that has flourished in many cultures around the globe and has evolved and diversified to bring forth numerous branches within the astrological tradition. Astrology is a spiritual way of knowing and can be approached as a spiritual practice. So don't listen to people who are out here telling you that you shouldn't be dabbling in astrology or numerology, because first of all, numerology is all throughout the Bible and many of the allegories especially, okay? And so is astrology. Now, what's the most powerful aspect of astrology, you might ask? Now, image results for spiritual aspects of astrology, conjunctions are said to be the most powerful aspects, mutually intensifying the effects of the planets involved. They are major points in an individual's chart. Now, whether the conjunction in question is regarded as beneficial or detrimental depends solely on the specific planets that are involved at the time. What is a conjunction aspect in astrology? Well, in astrology, the aspect called conjunction describes two separate points in the solar system that unites and then blend their energies together. From our perspective on Earth, points that are in the conjunction aspect seem to move together. So let me just give you an example. In the Bible, when it talks about the Lord's Prayer, and it says, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven," right? That is an example of the conjunction in astrology, which is blending the energies of ourselves here on earth together. Because as let thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. When they talk about the will of God, they're talking about the zodiac wheel. All right? The wheel that houses the 12 zodiac signs that fall directly in the path of the sun. Okay? That's an allegory in the Bible. When you're actually saying the Lord's Prayer, that is an allegory, as are many other things. And when it says the will be done on earth as it is in heaven, that's because what goes on in the heavens, which is the zodiacs, right? And the movement of the planets and the stars, the sun and the moon, those things determine our actions and our energies here on earth. So you may have heard that, there's a specific energy that's given out by the moon when there's a full moon. You've heard of the Mercury retrograde, which gives us a specific type of energy, right? So all of these things happen in earth or happen in heaven, but they absolutely affect life here on earth. Now, spiritual astrology. Does astrology matter on a spiritual journey? Spiritual matters and astrology are sometimes discussed together, and to the person in the street may seem connected. Now, astrology is concerned with understanding the connection between the movement of celestial bodies and events on earth. Understandably, then some say that astrology is one of the 7 keys to unlocking the secrets of the universe. Therefore, it is reasonable to ask, does astrology play a role in your spiritual development? And the answer is absolutely yes. And only spiritual people will be interested in pursuing and researching and studying astrology and how it coincides with their life and the energies that they have on a daily basis. Now, from a spiritual perspective, how accurate is astrology? Spirituality is ultimately about moving your awareness beyond the realm of astrology and geometry. From this higher perspective, you can understand astrology and other things in a way that your mind cannot. Consequently, this reveals that astrology is relatively accurate for predicting macrocosmic events. In other words, how astrology affects the planet, country, or group of people. Now, when it comes to individuals, in order to be accurate, you need to go into a high level of personal detail in order to be accurate. It is for this reason that professional astrologers, they take a lot of time to produce a personal chart for each person that they talk with, for each person that they're trying to give a reading on, or each person that they're trying to assess, their energies and tell them about the things that are going to happen when they're in Mercury or when they're in, different houses of the zodiac, right? They want to know as much pertinent information about the person as possible so they can, in fact, create a personal chart made specifically for each individual. Now, keep in mind, too, that every 4 minutes equates to 1 degree change in the sky. So if you don't know the exact time you were born, then your personal astrology may not be as accurate as it could be. It will still be able to tell you things about yourself, but it will be more accurate if you know the time that you were born, right? If you were born at 12 a.m. midnight or 6 a.m. in the morning, if you know the time, they can give you a more accurate reading. They can still, however, tell you, it still works. They can still tell you many things about yourself, but it would be absolutely more beneficial if you have the exact time of your birth. Now, if you asked, how will Mercury retrograde affect the planet, right? The answer might be disruption to communication systems and reflecting on past events. There would be problems with legal contracts and things like this too. These sweeping trends will be seen since the population is vast. But to try and predict how Mercury retrograde will affect you personally is a lot harder. You would need to take into account all of the relationships that Mercury has with the other planets, also the moon and the sun, and what houses they appeared in. You would have to know all of those details to get an accurate assessment on yourself to find out how it's going to affect you personally. But I can tell you this: when there's a Mercury retrograde going on, there is a lot of mechanical and technical issues. I wouldn't advise you to get dental work done at this time because things just happen to go awry. Okay, you may experience trouble with your vehicle, such as something breaking down with your car. Maybe you'll have computer issues. Maybe your phone won't be working right. Different things like this, disconnecting to internet and all these types of things. These are just a few of the things that happen with the Mercury retrograde. And maybe you've never noticed these things, or maybe you just thought it was just coincidence. But now that you know, if you start paying attention when these things happen, it'll become much more noticeable to you. Now, astrology is concerned with observing the correlation between physical planes and stars and the physical world. This means that astrology is fundamentally based in geometry, numerology, and psychology. Therefore, astrology is also concerned with spiritual realms. It helps to become more in tune with the universe, or helps you to become more in tune with the universe. Now, astrology runs the show when you are spiritually asleep. And that means those of you who have not yet awakened, or who may simply be diet woke, right? When you're spiritually asleep, astrology runs the show. Astrology defines the nature of the unconscious parts of you, which include your mind, your emotions, your ego, and body. Your natal chart determines how you unconsciously react to your environment. Your transit chart defines what you encounter within your environment. Put simply, if you are spiritually asleep in life, then your default behaviors will run on autopilot, just like clockwork. Think of astrology as the gears of a clock constantly cycling around, marking the passage of time. So let me elaborate on that. So basically, Beatzilla is laughing because I said diet woke. Yes, that's what I call some people. Now, let me elaborate on this, because here's the thing. If you're not spiritually awakened, if you have not activated the pineal gland, the optic thalamus, your third eye is not open, well, the thing is this. When you look at the birth cards of every individual, there are specific characteristics that each person has and exhibits. And the same when you study their astrological charts, right? When you look at the sign of their zodiac sign, and you look up the characteristics for these specific people, such as Pisces. Okay, now I'm a Pisces. I can say that Pisces are procrastinators, right? Sometimes we procrastinate. Pisces are also strong-willed, can be stubborn. We can even be easily annoyed, right? That's just some of the negative aspects of a Pisces. But Pisces are also very intuitive and spiritual people. But the thing is this: if you have not awakened into your spiritual self, if you have not raised your levels of consciousness, then the negative aspects of your astrological sign will be on autopilot. Like those things will just be happening like clockwork. Now you can change those things by becoming more spiritually in tune and by understanding how to rise above those things, right? As you evolve and become more spiritually awakened. And that's how astrology and numerology can also help you. It doesn't mean that because there's negative aspects of your character or your personality that you have to continue to stay that way. Okay? So with that all being said, you can always change things about yourself. But you have to want to change. So intuition and awareness run the show when you are spiritually awake. Now, this is the opposite, because the people that I just spoke on were the ones who were diet woke, spiritually asleep. Now we're talking about the people who are spiritually awakened. Intuition and awareness run the show when you are spiritually awake. But as you become more spiritually awake and aware, then you can tune in more to your life plan. Moreover, as you practice developing the 6 virtues so that your soul develops, then you become more aligned with love. You are naturally becoming more sensitive to guidance because you are more awake and aligned with love. Furthermore, you are more centered within, which is beyond personality and thus beyond astrology. This naturally happens as you enjoy and explore meditation. So as you start to meditate more, as I told you, try to meditate at least 10 minutes a day. It would be good if you could do it in the morning when you rise and at night before you rest. That would be great. But if you can't, just find a few moments out of the day to sit quietly and meditate and to quiet the mind. This helps you to rise into your higher self and to become more in tune with the universe. Now, with that all being said, people who have opened their third eye and activated the pineal gland, the optic thalamus, because you're spiritually awakened, your intuitiveness, your gut feeling, your awareness, your sense of discernment, right? These are spiritual gifts. And so once you have accepted these spiritual gifts, then you obviously know how to use them. And so they pretty much run the show. People can't just run game on you. People can't just tell you stupid things and think you're going to fall for it, because you're already knowing what they're up to before they even do it. That's why I know about these devils. I know all about the devils. I know their plots and plans before they even lay them out. That's why I can tell you things that are going to happen, like with the famine, like with them trying to cause a food shortage, you know, like with them blaming those who didn't get the venom for all the new variants and all those things. I told you all of those things because of my gift of discernment, because of my awareness and my intuitiveness, because I am spiritually awakened. And many of you, I'm sure, are spiritually awakened also. Sometimes things may happen and you may know these things are going to happen before they actually do. Maybe you thought it was a coincidence. No, it wasn't a coincidence. It was something that was in the back of your subconscious. You already knew it intuitively. Okay? Now, so when you are on autopilot, then astrology matters because it compels you to act and think a certain way. Even when you spiritually awaken, astrology still matters just as much, or though not as much, because you are less reacting to, rather more experiencing your environment. All limits include in astrology are ultimately transcended on the spiritual journey, and therefore your astrological makeup cannot be a barrier, but rather an advantage to a spiritual journey. So basically, even the negative things about yourself can be used to benefit if you are spiritually awakened and you are practicing your astrology. When you learn more about yourself, you can even take the negatives and turn them into positives. Mistakes you've made in the past, you can use that for teachable moments to teach someone else so they don't make the same mistakes. You can use it to teach yourself not to follow the same patterns of bad behavior so you don't find yourself doing the same bad things over and over again, the things that are to your detriment. So you can always use a negative and turn it into a positive, because there's always room for improvement, as I always tell you. And if you study your astrology, you'll find that when you're on autopilot, like when you're diet woke and you haven't risen to your higher self quite yet, but you're trying to, you're on your journey and you're trying to seek higher heights, but you haven't made it all the way, well, astrology is much more beneficial to you, because at that point, you really lean on astrology, or you should lean on astrology, to learn more about yourself, to learn more about how different things in the universe affect your behavior, your patterns of thinking. But as you become more awakened, you will realize that you don't need astrology as much as those who are not awakened. You still need it. You still use it. It's a spiritual practice, but you won't find yourself relying on it as much, because now that the third eye has been opened, you're starting to see these things they're just coming to you naturally without you even having to, always research or look for it. It just comes to you automatically. Now, the more you are consciously present, then the more you can tune into your intuition, which is a much better guide than transit charts or natal astrology. Being spiritual in practice affords you more self-honesty and more self-responsibility. Astrology is interesting because it helps you gain authority over you or your life as you begin to awaken. It helps you gain authority. It helps you to master the powers that you need to fully awaken yourself. Now, your astrology will still influence your body and aspects of your personality, but you are becoming something much more. As your connection to inner stillness grows, then you are empowered to make important decisions based on your intuition and your higher guidance. Because now, once the third eye is open and you've allowed the Kundalini energy to rise up the 33 vertebrae of the spine, up to the optic thalamus, now you will find yourself on a whole nother level of consciousness, on a higher stage of consciousness, where your higher self, your higher guidance, or your God-like self, or some call it the Christ-like self, where that takes over and you become more empowered in your decision making, and you learn how to effectively assess situations simply through your powers of discernment. Now, many people who practice advanced spiritual meditation report losing interest in numerology and astrology, geometry, and the other keys to the universe as they progress spiritually. But just as they had to find their way and learn from their own experiences, we value we value that wherever you are in your own journey, it is down to you and what you want. Now, astrology, as I told you, is mentioned numerous times in the Bible, right? In the King James Version of the Bible, Daniel 5:15-17 says, "And now the wise men, the astrologers, have been brought in before me, that they should read this writing and make known unto me the interpretation thereof. But they could not show the interpretation of the thing. And I have heard of thee that thou canst make interpretations and dissolve doubts. Now if thou canst read the writing and make known to me the interpretation thereof, thou shalt be clothed with scarlet and have a chain of gold about thy neck, and shalt be the third ruler in the kingdom." Then Daniel answered and said before the king, "Let thy gifts be to thyself, and give thy rewards to another. Yet I will read the writing unto the king and make known to him the interpretation." Now pay attention to how many times they keep talking about interpretation. What do we do with astrology? We interpret the stars, right? We interpret the movement of the planets. We interpret how these energies affect us in our lives. We interpret traits of our personality by the zodiac sign that we were born under. Now there's 88 constellations, but out of the 88, there's 12 that fall in the direct path of the sun. And of those 12, each of us are born under one of those signs. And we can interpret characteristics of ourselves by simply knowing what our zodiac sign is. They keep using the word interpretation. They also talked about the three wise men, the astrologers, because remember, they followed the North Star in the Bible to find the baby Jesus. So yes, clearly they were astrologers, and that's why I tell you that they talk about astrology and the zodiac and all of these things in the Bible. Now, the Mazzaroth, the gospel in the stars, this is what they call it. Mazzaroth is the Hebrew word for zodiac, and Mazzaroth is in the Bible. Job 38:32 in the King James Version says, "Canst thou bring forth Mazzaroth in his season, or canst thou guide Arcturus with his sons?" What is Mazzaroth? Like I said, it is the Hebrew interpretation of the word zodiac. Now, Genesis 1:14 in the King James Version says, "And God said, let there be lights in the firmaments of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years." So that's why we talk about the 4 seasons, right? The 4 seasons. And we talk about zodiac. The astrology talks about time, right? So we're talking about the different times of the seasons, different times of the years, and the different days of the year. Job 38:31 says, "Canst thou bind the sweet influences of Pleiades or loose the bands of Orion?" Now, as you can see here, it's a picture of the night sky, and this is the band of Orion. Orion the hunter. If you look right here, these 3 stars right here, right? That is what they call Orion's belt. Orion's belt is an asterism of 3 stars that appear about midway in the constellation of Orion, the hunter. And the asterism is so called because it appears to form a belt in the hunter's outfit. It is one of the most famous asterisms used by amateur astronomers. Asterisms are patterns of stars of similar brightness. The stars may be part of a larger constellation or may be formed from stars in different constellations. And as you can see right there, so that actually does look like a belt. And this, like I said, is from the book of Job, chapter 38, the 31st verse, when they're talking about Pleiades and the bands of Orion. And that's also where they talk about in the Bible, the allegory of the 3 kings being astrologers. They're talking about, when they say the 3 kings, they're actually talking about the 3 stars in the belt of Orion. Okay, so that's all an allegory for those that didn't know. So with that all being said, I want to thank you all for tuning in. And I hope you all enjoyed that presentation. I'm going to be doing part 2, talking more about astrology and the spiritual aspects of astrology. And so with that all being said, make sure you like and share this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click the notification bell and click the word all so that you're notified each time I go live on this channel. Claudette says, "Thank you, Queen." You're welcome, beloved. Okay, so with that all being said, I would like to remind you all to follow me on Instagram at QueenAhmadiyyah. Also on Instagram at divine_goddess_27. 444 watch me said, "This is priceless." Thank you, beloved. And so with that all being said, also don't forget to tune in to the Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur TV show or Authentic Black Goddess TV at 5 o'clock in just about 10 minutes, because I'm going to be going live on there for your daily vitamins. I'm going early today. And we're going to be talking about Obama, or Nobama, and this party that he had for his 60th birthday and how they were just getting down. So let's talk about that. Everyone, please like and share the video. I hope you all got something out of this. Don't forget to stay positive and always keep the Most High first in your life. Do something constructive and productive, not destructive. And remember, I've got my third eye on you.